My dearest brothers and sisters. This is Hakann speaking. I greet you in peace and love. For many of you, your new year has just begun. I would like to give my best wishes for the new year. So would my wife and my children, who are my inspiration in life. They add so much color to my life, and I learn and get so much joy from them. I love them more than words can express. Yet, to be honest, overall I am in a somber mood. For years now, us galactics have done behind the scenes work, and we have worked to raise the energy and vibration of Earth. However, in large part, we have also just waited, and let the people of Earth suffer, in large part to give humanity and notably the Grey Hats time to free Earth. Now, do I respect the people in the lower ranks of the Grey Hats? There are a lot of good, hard-working men and women there who are doing their best to free humanity. Often, these people are putting themselves in quite a bit of danger, just to do the right thing. However, I do have a problem with the lack of action from the higher-up Grey Hats. We have repeatedly had conversations with them and nudged them. They have repeatedly told us that very soon indeed, humanity would be free. Very soon. Soon. Soon, the criminals will be brought to justice. Soon. I'm sure you're sick of those words by now. They have taken some behind-the-scenes action, and while they are currently doing certain things, not that much has happened. And the people continue to suffer. From our perspective, the Grey Hat plan has failed. Even as a person with a very long lifespan, who hasn't had to suffer the pain of living on a captured world, it seems obvious now that it's unacceptable how long their so-called plan has been dragging on. It seems impossible to escape the conclusion at this point that our wait for the Grey Hats plan simply isn't working. They are doing some things, but they're not doing enough, and they're certainly not doing it quickly enough. What is weighing heavy on my mind right now is that the Grey Hats have failed. I don't mean this in the sense that they will lose their power struggle on Earth. They might eventually win. In my mind, they failed because they failed the people on Earth, by letting them suffer for way too long without helping them. I'm also not convinced that if the Grey Hats eventually do end up on top, that they'll actually liberate Earth. I suspect that they'll just build a new system with themselves on top. Living conditions will likely be better or even much better in that new system. The new system may at some point be announced with much fanfare. However, they'll still be an above-the-law group of controllers that make the decisions for humanity. They're likely not going to allow the people to know everything that has been going on. They're certainly not going to allow themselves to be fully held to account, or give up all of their privilege. It still won't be true liberty, a full empowerment of humanity, a complete sharing of the facts. It seems that on a harsh enough world like Earth, if someone is put in a position of authority, then they'll likely hoard power and technology and information for themselves. They'll likely put themselves above the law and hide their own crimes. They'll likely make average people follow laws that they pretend to follow too but actually don't. They'll likely hide information from average people. It's just a matter of, will they become outright evil, work together with demons and hostile ETs and seek to depopulate Earth? Or will they try and give the people they rule over a relatively good life? A big part of the plan of us galactics was essentially to send energies to slowly help raise the consciousness of humanity, to do covert operations to solve problems that are hard to deal with, to offer full support to the Grey Hats, and wait for them to free Earth. And if the Grey Hats failed, does that mean that us galactics failed? And as a commander, does that mean that I failed? While I have never been at the very top of the decision makers of the Galactic Confederation, I am the equivalent of an Earth general. My voice does carry more weight than the voice of the average person. And have I been arguing for the wrong side? In 2022, one of the soldiers under my command died. His last request was to be buried on Earth, and that I make sure that the people of Earth wouldn't suffer more than necessary. I made that promise to him. Have I been keeping that promise? After all, if it was up to some people in the Galactic Confederation, we would have directly intervened already, or alternatively we would have intervened on January 1, 2024. I was one of the relatively conservative voices, often arguing to give the Grey Hats a bit more time. It's possible that my position may have just been naive. Certainly, Arcock is less naive than I am, and he had been telling me for some time that the Grey Hats weren't going to free Earth anytime soon. Because, as he argued, beings with the consciousness of the average Earth human don't secure power in order to help people. Instead, they use people to secure power. Power isn't the means to help ordinary people, Ordinary people are the means to secure power. Power isn't the means, power is the end goal. The point of power is power. The end goal of power is power. It's a way of thinking that's hard to wrap my head around, because why do you even want power? I would have a more comfortable and relaxed life if I was a painter and dance instructor, instead of a galactic commander. The whole reason why I climbed the military ranks was to help people. I would happily give up all my power in a heartbeat if I didn't think that I can be of service to people in my current position. Still, Arcock's description does seem to fit the situation of Earth. Well, let me take a step back. Let's discuss the situation on Earth, as I currently see it. As you may recall, the Black Hats are those who are going along with the agenda to kill 90 to 95% of Earth's population and enslave the rest. Actual White Hats in positions of power are very rare, because they typically don't seek out power and also don't play the kind of power games necessary to attain power. And then there are the Gray Hats, who are people who are not quite Black Hats and not quite White Hats. They want power and privilege and more information than the average person does. They refuse to really be held to account, but they want a relatively good life for the people too. They don't want to fully empower the people, but they don't want to depopulate Earth either. These are people like Trump, Putin, and various people in the army, navy, intelligence agencies, and in the police. Admittedly, some of those lower level people are genuine selfless White Hats, but the people in positions of power are nearly always Gray Hats or Black Hats, because White Hats who climb that far just get murdered, and good people don't typically play the brutal power games that are necessary to become powerful on Earth. As a rule of thumb, if the mainstream media tells you that someone is great, then that person is probably a Black Hat. If the mainstream media tells you that someone is awful, then that person is probably a Gray Hat. If the mainstream media tells you that someone's plane just crashed or that they allegedly took their own life, then there's a good probability they were a White Hat, although of course Black Hats and Gray Hats sometimes get murdered or get suicided too. On paper, the Gray Hat plan was to free humanity, through a combination of providing disclosure via alternative channels, through undercover operations and undercover evidence gathering, and through allowing the Black Hats to do enough damage that humanity would wake up. On paper, the plan was that the people would suffer enough that they would wake up and they would eventually rise up against the Black Hats, and then the Gray Hats, who of course think of themselves as White Hats, would reveal themselves and finally do the mass arrests. Now, we don't agree with the idea that people wake up if you make them suffer. Yes, some people do, but other people go into psychological survival mode and become even more close-minded. Which is what we've been seeing. The Gray Hats would say that it's the people's fault that they are so slow to wake up and that they're not taking enough action, but from our perspective the Gray Hat plan was simply flawed. Also, the Gray Hats have always been held back by the fact that the higher-up decision-making Gray Hats like being more powerful, richer, more well-known, better informed and with access to better technology than the average person on the street. And in the back of their minds, they know that if they actually create a world of freedom, then they're no longer billionaires in a world where people starve to death. We have a hard time wrapping our heads around this, but some, not all, higher-up Gray Hats genuinely seem to get egoic pleasure from the fact that they're so rich and powerful while ordinary people struggle so much. It's the old Earth saying, "It's not enough that I succeed. Others must fail." Then over time, a second problem arose and became bigger and bigger. This problem is, if today the Gray Hats were to actually free Earth and give everyone full disclosure, then the people of Earth would most likely drag some of the higher-up Gray Hats themselves in front of a court. They have committed crimes themselves, as well as things that may be judged as crimes such as Operation Warp Speed. Plus the people of Earth would likely be angry that these higher-up Gray Hats have effectively chosen to let people suffer for years in order to make people wake up. Who gave these Gray Hats the right to do that? Can you truly say that at this point that Trump and the military Gray Hats have kept their oath to protect the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic? I don't think there's a clause in that oath that says that you're allowed to ignore your oath for years, so long as you insist that you are going to arrest bad guys at some undetermined point in the future. And yes, the Gray Hats did have a choice. I know the Gray Hats love to say variants of "it has to be this way," but that's simply not true. The Gray Hats could have, and from our perspective should have freed Earth years ago. To give just one argument to support this, we have repeatedly offered them all the help and support they needed to free Earth, and our offer is still available. Yet they have never taken us up on that offer. And frankly, Even without our support, they could have pulled the trigger years ago and freed Earth. It would have been messier without our support, but it could have been done, and it can still be done today. About 3 months ago, I gave the Grey Hats until the end of 2023 to finally start taking tangible action. Use the mountains of evidence they have to arrest certain obvious criminals. Ease the burden of the people of Earth, because they are suffering. Stop the mainstream media from spreading constant lies, because how can you expect the people on Earth to wake up if they're lied to constantly and if truth speakers keep being censored? In the last 3 months, the Grey Hats have accomplished little, and hence we've now entered the period where from my perspective an intervention may be necessary and justified. As described in previous messages, this intervention will likely take place in 2024 or 2025, if no solar flash or big positive step on Earth is made before then. In fact, the Black Hats have accomplished more in the last 3 months than the Grey Hats have. Living standards keep falling in many parts of the world. The Ukraine-Russia conflict keeps killing people. Hamas killed Israeli citizens, which was unjust and horrible, but now Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, in my opinion. I am hoping for a ceasefire, but the Israel-Palestine conflict could escalate into a larger war. Moreover, Trump has died. I know that people will reject Trump's death just because they emotionally don't want it to be true. However, unfortunately it is true. You may very well keep seeing him. However, what you see will be a combination of actors, body doubles, clones, CGI, possibly a robot wearing human skin and possibly holograms. There exists technology on Earth that is well ahead of what the public is aware of. However, the real Trump has died. Don't expect the Black Hats to come out and say that, because it would sound crazy to average people and Trump would simply deny it. Also, they have been using the same trick themselves. Certain American Black Hat politicians have also died and been replaced in the same way, hence the Black Hats don't want to alert the public to that possibility. Do expect the Black Hats to remain very scared of Trump, because to be blunt, the real Trump didn't really have the guts and the willpower to actually do what needed to be done. Admittedly, it is a heavy burden to carry that much responsibility, and it's always easier to criticize than to be the one in charge. However, it's still true. Trump's promise for his 2017 to 2020 presidency was that he would drain the swamp. It's now 2024. Clearly he didn't have the guts to just bite the bullet, pull the trigger and order mass arrests or a huge public disclosure event. Some Black Hats are actually more scared of this new actor, clone Trump, than they were of the real Trump, because it's possible that this new Trump will have the guts to do what needs to be done. It would be ironic if this new Trump impersonator would actually manage to beat the Black Hats. Although right now things are very chaotic and it's hard to predict what will happen. With all that said, I can't deny that Trump has prevented a whole lot of harm. He worked hard for a long time to help the American people. He also carried the heavy burdens of authority and of being so hated for a very long time. At no point would I have wanted to be in his shoes. Rest in peace, Donald John Trump. You were a complicated and imperfect man, and certainly you made mistakes. At times you were too prideful or too trusting or indeed too loyal to certain people. Sometimes that metaphorical hole in your heart hurt you, and sometimes you sought love from outside yourself. You were very good with words and you have done some very clever things, but not everything you did was a masterful 5D chess move. On the whole, you've done far more good than bad in the world. You have helped even the people who hated you, for example because you prevented an actual hot America-Russia World War III that Hillary would likely have launched. And you have helped a lot of people with simple, personal, individual kindnesses. Donald John Trump, very few people could have filled your shoes. You have done great things, and very few people could have done what you have done. You will be deeply missed. In his better moments, Trump did want to empower and free the American people, and he did believe in them. And he did love them. So, rest in peace, Donald John Trump. We call on the Grey Hats to be honest and open about this and explain the details of Trump's death to the people of the world. Instead, what the Grey Hats are currently doing is pretending that everything is fine, and that their Trump replacement is the real Trump. It is actually quite common on Earth for an important person to die and for them to be replaced by an actor or a clone or something like that. After all, it gives certain power behind the throne controllers an easy way to retain their power. Or in the case of the Grey Hats, they would probably argue that they have to do this, because so many people stand united behind Trump. Yet, a new society cannot be built on the back of lies. And the truth is that Trump has passed on. So, where does that leave the people of Earth? Well, ultimately that is up to you. From our side, we have lost even more faith in the ability and willingness of the Grey Hats to actually free Earth. Now, if you'd talk to them, they'd tell you that they're still going to free Earth, they're working on it, they just need more time. But from our perspective, they have had plenty of time, and we don't like all the lying and oath-breaking and the lurking in the shadows and all the letting people suffer that they have been doing. Once, we considered the Grey Hats to be the closest thing to legitimate Earth representatives that Earth had. Now, we're viewing them as yet another secret society, preferable to the actual Black Hats, certainly, but not righteous and not legitimate. If you are going to be free, and you will be free, because Source has decreed it, then wait for the Grey Hats to free you really doesn't seem like a viable option to us anymore. They might still free you and improve your living standards, but at this point we don't want to wait for that, and furthermore we don't trust them to actually free Earth if they do manage to beat the Dark Controllers. So it will have to be you, the people of Earth, who are going to have to free yourselves. While you can free yourselves without outside help. Now it's possible that the situation on Earth is so difficult that you won't accomplish this until there is a solar flash or a galactic intervention. But even then, that just creates an opening. It's going to be up to the people of Earth to use that opening and build a new society. In the past we figured that if the solar flash came, the Grey Hats would take power and they would free Earth and everything would be great. But now, we don't trust the Grey Hats, and now we don't really want to see Earth end up with the Grey Hats in charge. Now, even if the solar flash or a galactic intervention comes, it will be up to the people of Earth to give direction, to step forward, to take responsibility and to build a new society. And many of you have come in for just that time. I do strongly believe in you, in our beloved ground crew. You have more than proven yourselves to be capable and heart-centered. When the time comes, I expect that enough of you will indeed step forward and contribute to building a better world. I'm not suggesting any kind of violence. That is only going to be counterproductive. Yet, if enough men and women raise their consciousness, if enough men and women demand their freedom, then you shall indeed be free. From our perspective, at this point in time, you have no legitimate representatives. You are going to have to present yourself, instead of being represented by politicians or Grey Hats. You are you, and you are legitimate. No one is more legitimate than you are. Ultimately you will have to stop waiting for someone else to fix everything. Ultimately you will have to jointly say enough, jointly create a better society, and stop giving your power away to some Grey Hat who promises everything and gives little. Of course, different people are good at different things, not everyone needs to create some kind of new movement. I also recognize this is a process. If right now all you can do is survive or take care of yourself, then that is enough, that helps the collective. Or if you have a little bit of energy left but not too much, see if you can be kind to someone, or connect with someone else. Safe, genuine connection is sorely lacking on Earth, and this is an area where you can contribute a lot with not much effort, for example just by talking and being kind to someone else. And of course, you can also help the entire collective simply by looking inside yourself, and by being kind to yourself. Truly, you are the ones you have been waiting for. And perhaps us galactics, perhaps I myself made the mistake that we spent more time talking with people like Trump and the Grey Hats on how to free Earth, than we spent having serious talks with, well, you. There doesn't seem to be anyone to talk to who can legitimately represent the people of Earth. And so today I turn to you. What do you think should happen on Earth? The people of Earth can free themselves. We acknowledge that this may be hard to do in practice. Still, what would be needed for that? What would be a productive step towards that? What can more or less average people do to work towards a new and better society? What should the new Earth look like? Do you want our help, and if yes, how do you think we should help? What do you think we should do? Out-of-the-box suggestions are welcome, but keep in mind that we can't trigger the solar flash ourselves, only Source and the galactic central sun can do that. Keep further in mind that if we just beam up light workers, then Earth becomes even more painful for those who remain. Light workers aren't likely to want to return to Earth after having been beamed up. Furthermore, we will put a giant target on their back if we beam them up and then beam them back down. Also, if we just land and start meeting people without first doing a full intervention and mass arrests, then both us and the people we meet will be in great danger. So from our point of view, us landing and either meeting everyone on Earth, or meeting select light workers, more or less requires a full intervention first, for our safety and yours. The galactic higher-up decision makers are likely going to stick with their current intervention policy, which boils down to intervening in 2024 or more likely 2025, if there hasn't been a solar flash or a big productive step for the people of Earth. I myself am becoming sympathetic to the suggestion that we should just publicly announce our existence today, but the Galactic Confederation decision makers are unlikely to approve that plan just yet. Still, I am very curious to hear your thoughts. And to end on a positive note, I know that the current times are very harsh, and I'm sorry about that. At the same time, your future really is very beautiful and bright. It is a very dark period right now, but when light workers step forward and begin constructing the new Earth, your hearts will most likely sing. You will most likely experience joy and connection and nurturing energies and experiences. You will most likely have an amazing time. Circumstances that are currently wearing you down may simply become memories, not to be experienced in the present anymore. The pain from the present and the past will not be forgotten, but it also won't be so intense anymore that it will cripple you. As has been promised, you will be free. And it wouldn't be freedom if you were emotionally crippled for the rest of your life. Your freedom includes getting access to physical and emotional healing. You would be amazed how much better you'll feel after some healing, some better nutrition, free access to truthful information and teachers and guides, plus safe and nourishing connections. In a couple of years, it is my firm belief that you will be very happy that you stuck around, and you will feel re-energized. And you will feel that your life has been worth it, not just in terms of service or soul growth, but also just that you will experience more joy and love in your life than sorrow and pain. I know that's currently not true for some of you, but we'll make up for lost time. Hang in there. Better times really are coming. Your star brother, Hakann.
Note from the channeler, this message contains the opinion that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. I also live in the Netherlands, where certain kinds of speech against Israel will get you into legal trouble. I'm not a lawyer and I don't know if this particular statement, or my statement that Trump is dead, can actually get me into legal trouble, but I don't want to find out. Therefore, I will include the following disclaimer for my legal protection. Disclaimer, I am not denying the Holocaust. I am not denying the right of Israel, or the right of the Jewish people to exist. I am opposed to the murder of Israelis, by Hamas and other groups. I don't think Jews should be killed or removed from the lands of Israel. I actively discourage violence of all types. I also actively discourage discrimination of all types, including, but not limited to, discrimination against Jews. Information in this message is for informational and educational and entertainment purposes. This message contains humor, parody, and satire. There is a comment section. Comments do not necessarily reflect my views and opinions. End disclaimer. Have a good week.